Hello and welcome once again to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management, a show where we sit down and talk about you and your money and talk about retirement and talk about all the things that kind of get in the way, and certainly about markets and all of the uproar that we have going on right now. There's a lot happening and a lot of nervousness out there, and we want to help you with that. Jay, how are you doing today?
Fantastic, Randy. How about you?
I'm good. I'm watching those markets like a hawk, and I'm going through all the headlines, and we're gonna deal with some of those negative headlines a little bit later. But there's a lot going on right now, and so one of the things that we wonder about is how much do we want to be in this market right now? How much? And this gets into that conversation you and I talk about all the time, and that's risk. How much do you want in that market, and how much do you not want in that market? And so I found this article in Kiplinger, and it says most people start to dial back their risk in the stock market about 3 to 5 years before retirement. But Kiplinger disagrees with that. They say you should begin the process of dialing back your risk 10 to 15 years before retirement. That seemed kind of early to me, kind of soon. So how do you approach that? If somebody comes in and they're 50 years old, are you telling them to dial back your risk? Or how does that conversation unfold about risk with somebody who's really quite a few years away from retirement?
Yeah, the real answer to that is that it would depend on where are they starting from right now.
Okay.
Are they ultra aggressive? Are they already somewhat conservative? So, you need to take a look at the portfolio. I've got to agree with you. The 10 to 15 years sounds excessive, right? So, that's somebody who's going to retire at 60 when they're 45. They should start dialing back the risk. I think you're going to leave a lot of growth potential on the table. The 3 to 5 years, yeah, I could see that. And this is the seed I always like to plant with people as well. I am never, and none of the advisors we have here, we're never the sort of person that's trying to push people into taking more risk than they feel comfortable with. You don't want to do that, okay? But the risk discussion, I really believe, becomes much more relevant when you're closer to retirement. Maybe you're a year or so from retirement, but especially once you're in retirement. And this is why that's when the risk discussion is vital. If we talked about 3 to 5 years, maybe start kind of looking at it then. Yeah, okay. So let's imagine, let's take ourselves back in time to 2005, 2006, okay? And so we're thinking, not knowing the train that's coming down the tracks for us, we're thinking, maybe I'll retire in March of 2009, right when the stock market's going to bottom, but I don't know that yet, right? And yeah, I'm going to retire at 60. That's my 60th birthday. I'm going to retire there. And yeah, should I start getting a little bit more conservative? Yeah, probably I should. It's getting closer. But once I retire at 60, I've probably got 25 years, right? 25 years conservatively that I've got to make this money last. So I can't get too conservative with it. And this is the thing. If everything falls apart, which in this situation it's going to, right? In this situation that we're talking about, this person's in 2005, 2006, thinking 3 years ahead or so, I'm going to retire in 2009. Everything is going to fall apart for them. They just don't know it yet, okay? So they get to there. The first reaction is like, hey, this isn't ideal, but I've still got a job. I can still keep working. I can work another 12 months, another 18 months to get me through this bad timing that I've ended up in. That's not going to happen to most people, but we're pulling out the most dramatic example, right? So you work another 12 months, another 18 months, if the timing is just absolutely shocking for you, and you've recovered those losses, all right, your retirement's been delayed by 18 months. Is it the end of the world? You still got to do it. Things didn't fall apart. We still got to retire. That's the thing that people should look at. Now, let's take a different example. Let's talk about the person that retired at the beginning of 2008, and they never adjusted their risk tolerance, and they never really set out a plan where they've got some guaranteed income coming in. They're not in the workforce anymore. They're not in the labor market anymore. And if they want to go back into it, they might be able to, but it's unlikely that they're going to be back at the same pay grade they were when they retired, right? Because often you've got very specific skills that are unique to that company or job at that stage of life, all right? Now, that person is in a lot of trouble. They've already retired. They haven't adjusted their risk. They haven't looked at it. So when 2009 happens, when March of 2009 happens, and our first guy was like, this kind of stinks, but I'll just keep working and we'll work our way through this. The second guy we talked about who's already retired, if he has not done the right thing with his portfolio, his retirement funds just got cut in half. And you know what's going to happen? He's also got to keep drawing on that account while it's severely depressed because there's nowhere else he's getting money from. Those are the extreme differences between why the risk management is so much more important, yes, as approaching retirement, but certainly much more once you're in that retirement lane.
Well, there's two things that I take away from that, and it's one that you say all the time. What's the greatest commodity that we have? And that's time. Mm-hmm. When you're in your 20s and you're working and the market goes haywire, you're still working and you've got time. Same in your 30s, same in your 40s. But when you get into your 50s and 60s, the time frame starts to, change because you're going to stop working somewhere along the line and you can't replenish those funds. So is it a green light for risk? Is it a yellow light for risk? Is it a red light for risk? You have to figure that out and when those take place. And having that conversation is really helpful. And as Jay kind of lays it all out there for you, give us a call and let's have that conversation with you. Here's our number, 210-985-6200. Our first meeting everything is free, sitting down there and talking through all of this. There's no charge certainly for that. And let's talk about what your hopes and dreams for retirement are. Let's talk about what you have done to save for retirement and how those two things go together. And if there's a gap in there somehow, if there's questions, let's try to work them out. Give us a call, 210-985-6200, or our website is retire210.com. Well, what's going on right now is kind of crazy as far as politics are concerned and federal workers are concerned. And as we speak on this show right now, there's been 75,000 to 100,000 workers that have either taken an early retirement from federal or they have been fired from their federal job. And the work is not done yet because according to what Elon Musk wants to do, they want to trim the force by 10%, which is going to be another 200,000 to 300,000 people. So I've got to believe that there's going to be some people that walk through your door, Jay, that were former federal employees. Maybe they got a pension, maybe they don't. So what is that conversation? What options do people explore? Somebody's in their 50s and they go, what do I do? Do I got to go back into the private sector? Can I retire? What do you talk about with a federal worker right now?
Yeah, so we are getting those people sitting down with us in the office, and we're also getting people that were not federal employees, but they worked for some NGO, right, that is no longer getting funding, and they've got to figure out what they're going to be doing as well. The first thing we offer for those people, and to be completely transparent, we're actually prioritizing those people when they come in now because they're in a tough spot, right? So we're trying to put them to the head of the line with everything. We've really got to start looking at the financial planning side of it, right? Where are you financially? And we look at, are you in the retirement zone or not, right? Is this even something that we can consider? So we've got to go through the planning process first, see where they are financially, see if retirement's an option. Unfortunately, for a lot of the people that we've been talking with, they're just too young. If someone's 47, 48, 52, 53, it's just, for most people, it's too young to retire. Occasionally we'll get someone who's they're like, hey, this kind of worked out great. I was going to retire next month anyway. And they got their buyout. I was like, all right, hey, that's great. Good for you. I'm glad it worked out that way. And we're able to get them set up for retirement. But, for a lot of those people, they've got to really reskill, get back into the workforce. Probably it's in the private sector. And the next step is, hey, let's look at those government benefits that at least you've accumulated, whether it's pension, whether it's TSP, and figure out what's the best thing we can do with them right now.
There's a lot going on right now, headline-wise, and it's not over yet. The upheaval continues on, and we're going to see over the next couple of months what's going to happen with all of this. And the markets are going crazy. The unemployment rate seems to be going up. The inflation rate seems to be going up. There's a lot out there right now that's going to affect all of us, not just federal employees. So to sit down with Jay, and that's one of those crisis situations. Oh, my gosh, look what just happened. I need some help. Jay handles those all the time. I mean, whether you're in your 50s and that happens, or you're in your 60s and that happens. I think I saw the other day of 10 people, 6 people will not make their retirement date that they hoped. And it's not because they died. It's because they got laid off. There was a health situation. There was a health situation with their spouse. There was something that happened that they had to retire early. Those are those crisis situations that we really need help with. Jay can. Give us a call. 210-985-6200 is our number. 210-985-6200 or retire210.com is our website. All the way down at the bottom of the page there's a form fill. You can put your name and information in there, and our team will reach out to you. Let's get a date on a calendar. I've got an article in front of me, another baby. Hey, boomer, another one of those articles. All right, this is in Money Wise, and it says boomers make up about 21% of the U.S. population, yet they hold about 50% of the nation's wealth. I don't think that's a crazy thing because we've been saving all these years. Of course we do. But in any event, what boomers are known for is wanting to make sure that they're going to send money down to their kids and money to their grandchildren. They're very much that way until now, apparently, because inflation is up, the cost of living is up, the cost of going out of your big house that you've been in all these years with 4 bedrooms and going into something else, that price is not very appealing anymore. So baby boomers are now being a little bit more selfish, I guess you could say. What's wrong with that? And say, I'm going to make sure I'm okay first, and whatever's left over can go to my kids. Estate planning is kind of on the wane, apparently. And they say only about 40% of boomers even have a will, and they're unconcerned about that. They're going to put themselves first. Yet, 50 to 60% of millennials and Gen Xers say an inheritance is critical or very critical to their financial security. All right. Having all that said, Jay, do you see this happening right now with the people that you talk to, that they think, I'm going to take care of myself first, and I've done everything I can for my kids. Whatever's left over, they can have it.
Yeah, this is a lot to unpack. So let's get into it. And Randy, why are you and your friends screwing everything up for everybody?
It's all my fault. Hey, boomer, you're screwing everything up.
But, the point you make, hey, it's 20%, 1 in 5 people are in that boomer generation holding 50% of the wealth. I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I really am surprised it's not more because you're right. You're at either the peak of your career or the beginning of retirement, right? You've got a lot of wealth. So, I mean, that makes sense. I don't think that's unusual whatsoever. I will say this. I don't think it's the whole cost of living inflation thing, because before inflation kicked up, people had the same opinion.
Yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah.
I'm retiring. I've helped my kids. I've put them through college, of whatever it is, right? I've set them up the best that I can. Now it's our time to enjoy this, as it should be, right? As it should be, really. And what you mentioned in here is what I hear over and over again. We're going to enjoy our retirement. We're going to do what we want. If there's something left, that's great. I want our kids to have it and to enjoy it, but that is not a priority in our financial planning. That's what we hear over and over. And look, I mean, for most people, if there's not a lot of cash or investments left, there's probably a house, right? There's something, right? So there probably will be something that is passed on to the heirs. Because of that reason, we are big advocates of estate planning. So I think I've told you this before a while ago. We started kind of building a network here where we have an estate planning firm that our clients work with to get the estate planning done. We've got a CPA group that helps with our tax management side of it. And every part, and then there's us with the financial planning and the investments, and every part of that circle, if you want to look at it that way, is talking to each other. So plans are integrated. There's a purpose for what's happening. And the reason we establish that is because we notice more and more, once people get to retirement, there's a few other things, not just the financial planning and the investments they're worried about. They start worrying about, how much of this money am I going to lose to Uncle Sam if I don't plan it out right? We need some tax planning. We need a tax planning component and partner to help out our people with that. And they start saying, hey, you know what? I'm at retirement. I can't keep kidding myself that I'm young anymore. I need to look at that estate planning as well and get that done. And even if you're not planning to pass on a bunch of assets. It's, hey, kind of whatever's left is left. Believe me, your children or your heirs or whoever you're leaving this to, they will thank you a lot for going and getting that estate planning done rather than dropping an estate that has to go through probate. And it's a real pain in the neck. So you're helping them out a lot.
Yeah, I talked to an estate planner not that long ago, and I brought up an article of somebody who I think it was on TikTok or something like that, and she had a video of herself, and she said, my parents passed away. It has taken me a year and a half to get this unwound. And I asked him, I said, is that normal? He said, yeah, that's actually about normal. Yeah. About a year and a half. That's
I've heard it take longer than that even. Yeah. So we actually had, I had some clients who were doing a review for just yesterday, and his dad died, I think it was 2021. And there was a will, but it was really old. And then he had handwritten something else in about how he wanted to have it changed. And one of the siblings did not care for that change. So it's, so what are we talking about here now? 4 years?
Gosh.
It's going on. So long story short, get that taken care of.
Yeah, I remember when my wife and I bought our first house, we didn't have the down payment, so went to the relatives, went to my mom and dad, went to her mom and dad, and I think they gave us, let me see, Julie's mom and dad gave us $2,000. My mom and dad gave us $1,000, and my grandmother gave us $1,000, and she looked at me, she says, now, I'm giving you this under one condition. If I get sick, I'm going to need this money back.
Yeah.
But that's got to be another big concern of people that really wasn't listed here, and that is that people are afraid of the cost of long-term care. They're afraid of the cost of assisted living and memory care and all that goes in there, and that really does factor in to what we're talking about here is if you don't have a good estate plan along with your retirement plan, it's kind of incomplete, isn't it?
No, it really is. And I started off by saying, hey, before the high cost of living, this was kind of the attitude anyway. We're going to spend what we want to spend. But what you said is absolutely right. That's almost the next thing that comes out of somebody's mouth is, hey, we're gonna enjoy this money. And look, this is the thing is, I don't know if we're going to need it, if we're going to end up in long-term care, if we're going to need some sort of home health help. That's the thing. And that kind of lends its discussion to the long-term care side of it, right? Yeah. Longevity and long-term care that you might end up in. And the truth is, traditional long-term care policies, the old school ones you think of, I pay X amount a month and I'm going to get a certain benefit for a certain period of time. For most people, there's just no way they're going to be able to afford it, to pay that policy, right?
Yep.
So the idea of, I need to preserve my wealth for me. Hopefully I never get into that situation and I don't have to use it. And if it goes to my kids, then okay, great. But I don't know what the future holds for me.
Well, we need to have that discussion. It needs to be part of the retirement discussion, and Jay has the resources to help you with all of that and getting the legal documents in place. And one of the things about having the legal documents in place is once you're gone from this world, it really does spell out exactly how it's supposed to go, how you wanted it to go, and all that infighting that we want to avoid with the siblings and all that goes along with that. Let's just take that off the table. Give us a call at Secure Financial Management. Give Jay a call. Let's talk through it. 210-985-6200 is our number. 210-985-6200 or retire210.com is our website. You can go there. Down at the bottom of the page, there's a place where you can put in a little information there. There's even a box that says, what are you most concerned about? That'll give us a real good idea what you want to talk about, and then let's get the conversation going. Again, retire210.com. Well, when we talk about retirement, one of the issues that people grapple with is, I don't know if I want to retire. I think I'm going to be bored. There's a new Mass Mutual study out there that says 67% of retirees are happier in retirement than they were in their working years. So that's good. So there are people that are still not sure whether they want to pull the trigger on retirement. And this particular article says, before you tell yourself you can power through another 12 more months on the job, think about if you really need to. And Jay, that is where you come in. When the figures are staring you in the face and they're saying, yes, you can retire. What is the reaction? Is the reaction, I don't know if I should, I don't know if I want to, or I can't wait, here are my keys, I'm done? What happens there?
Very often it's the latter. It's relief.
Okay.
That I have independence, I have freedom, I have choices, right? And this is what, just to touch on this while we're on this topic, this is what I have noticed over the years, and I start mentioning this to people now, and they're like, yeah, you're right. If we have somebody who's still working, and they're like, I probably want to retire, work's getting tougher, whatever it might be. And we do the planning, and we're able to give them the news that, hey, it's not a money issue now. That has been resolved. We've found out that you're good for that. Now it's when you're ready. Sometimes, or very often, that gives them a new lease on their work life. And they feel refreshed isn't the right word. I can't think of the right word I want to use right now.
I would say.
Empowered, I think. There you go. That's a great word. Because now they are there by choice, not by obligation, because I have no other option. Right. And I'll say to people, I can tell when someone just does not want to work or can't work anymore because they drag themselves in. I've got to find a solution to this. I can't keep working. And they're ready to go. Right. Yeah. And if the numbers look good, I know the next day they're giving notice. Mm-hmm. That's not everybody. And I'll get people in here and I'll say, hey, look, you can retire. The money's good. This is my only other concern is I don't know if you're ready to retire. I don't get that feeling from you. And they'll say, yeah, I kind of like what I do. It's not stressful. I enjoy it. I enjoy the people I work with. And I say to them, look, keep working then. Don't retire. Keep working. Believe me, you will know when it's time. Mm-hmm. You will get up, sit on the side of the bed one morning and be like, is there any way I can avoid going into work today? That's your cue.
Yeah, when you're staring out the window at work and you're going, I should be out there instead of in here. Yeah, those are some of those retirement brain things that happen in those years. Well, Jay, we're coming to the end of the show here. When someone calls and responds to the show, whether they use our website or they give you a call, they're going to see your Get Me to Retirement 5-step process. In the last minute or so that we have here, go through that with me and tell me what happens when somebody calls. What do you ask for? Who do they meet with? What happens?
Yeah, so the first meeting we want to have when someone comes in, sometimes people are saying, hey, I thought I'd get, an analysis or we'd talk investment strategy. We don't talk any of that. We just talk, who are you? What's going on? What do you have to work with? What assets? What's your 401k like? What's your Social Security benefit supposed to be? When would you like to retire? What sort of life is it? What sort of retirement is it that you want to experience? Let us get to learn about who you are. So then we can go back and we can make a plan that's tailored specifically for you, right? Everyone's situation is very different. We've had some people that they've done a wonderful job saving. They've got significant assets to work with. Hey, you know what? Not everybody has been so lucky. Some people, it's been a bit tougher for them and they don't have as much to work with. We've got to know where you are, what you're trying to achieve. Put a plan together that's going to give us some answers. I can't promise they're going to be the answers that you want, but they are going to be real answers, right? And then we have decisions to make. Are we where we need to be? And now the option is, do we move forward? Do we retire? Maybe the situation is like, hey, with what you told us you want to do in retirement, we're really not there yet. We're really not ready to retire yet. If somebody moves forward, it's about implementing that plan, and then we got to keep monitoring it. The one thing I always say to people when we do some planning is, we're looking at multiple decades. And I say, I can't promise much in life, but I can promise you this is not going to turn out exactly the way that we're forecasting here because things are going to come up, right? Things are going to come up that we're not expecting. So we've got to stay on top of this plan. And that's where a lot of plans fall apart, right? They're created and then it's, all right, set it, forget it, don't worry about it. And then it falls apart because you're not able to pivot and navigate around the things that life are going to throw you. So it's a vital part of the planning process.
And that last step in that 5-step process is that ongoing support. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that once you walk through the door and sit down and talk to Jay and build a retirement plan, and maybe it's a green light and you go off into the sunset and you retire and have a great time, that doesn't mean that's the last time they're going to see you, Jay, because as you say, right, things happen. I mean, look at how the markets are roiling right now. Look at what interest rates have done over the last couple of years. This is going to mean you're going to probably need to make some moves still in retirement. Set it and forget it is not a part of the vocabulary.
That's exactly right. if it is, you're setting yourself up to fail, is what I would say. Because we create plans in the environment that exists right now, and that environment is going to change, and we have to change with it.
210-985-6200 is our number. 210-985-6200 or our website, retire210.com. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, have we been duped by the idea of the 401k? That's what the Wall Street Journal says. Is that true? And how do we get around the downside of the 401k? That's coming up next on Clear Skies Retirement.
Saw a t-shirt recently that said too much of anything is bad, unless we're talking about bacon. Now, we can debate that all day long, right? But the point is, portion control is a good thing. That can also be said about your retirement accounts. Too much risk, and you could get burned by a down market. Too conservative, and maybe you can't take that Alaskan cruise. Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management understands portion control. He can build a retirement plan with a level of protection and risk designed specifically for you. And if you don't want any risk at all, he can do that too. Call Jay Kirkwood today for a free meeting to discuss it. 210-985-6200. That's 210-985-6200. Now, you may not be able to find the right balance between a pound of bacon and a pound of kale, but you can find the balance between worrying about retirement and enjoying it. Call today, 210-985-6200 or at retire210.com.
Welcome back to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood. If it's time to talk about your retirement, give us a call for a no-cost, no-obligation meeting. It's 210-985-6200. Okay, the Wall Street Journal says this. The great lie is that the 401k was able to replace the old pension system. It was oversold. Okay, Jay, many of us come to retirement with a big 401k. What are your thoughts on that one?
The title's pretty dramatic. It was a great lie.
Yeah.
I think it's more like understanding what you have, right? Understanding what you have, understanding the pros and cons of it. This is where the real problem lies with it, I think, more so than anything else, is the pension was done for you, right? Just happening there in the background, the employer's contributing everything, and then it spits out a benefit for life at the end of it. Mm-hmm. People probably grow more wealth inside their 401k, especially with the way the stock market has returned since 1978. Mm-hmm. The problem is you're only going to get those gains if you're actually participating. Right. So you've actually, a lot of companies now, a large employer here in town that a lot of our clients retire from. It's gotten to the point now where, you know, back when I was younger, it would have been the same with you, Randy, as well, is you had to opt into the 401k and say, yes, I want to participate and I'm going to put 6%, 8%, whatever it is of my salary in there. Mm-hmm. But you had to actually hop in there, right? A lot of young people don't. And 10 years go by, 20 years go by, and they've got nothing in their 401k because most of them, if you don't participate, the employer doesn't participate, right? So that's obviously a double whammy there that you're missing out on. It's gone to the point where now they auto-enroll people. I didn't know if you knew that had changed, but they actually auto-enroll people now to say, all right, come on, you've got to get this process started. So the thing is, with the 401k, there's a bit of discipline there involved. Like, you've actually got to know what's going on. You've got to participate a little bit. You've got to be involved and putting money into it. And that's what trips most people up is, I don't think they're inherently bad or good. It's just you've got to understand it. And look, one of the big things with the pension, you didn't have to think about it. Yeah, that's right. You also had no market risk involved. It's the pension's problem, okay? Mm-hmm. So you get these ups and downs, and it's not your problem. With the 401k, guess what? It's your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally get your point because I've got kids that are that age, 25 to 35 years old. And when they ask me, you know, should I put money in this thing? I say, absolutely. And this is the time to do it.
Absolutely. That's right.
But all they see is $200 getting out of their check every time. And they need that $200. Mm-hmm. And so in the same way, if we didn't have the 401k, would we have anybody coming to the table with retirement money, Jay? Because if we don't have the discipline just to say, yes, I will save, Do we have the discipline to say, I'll open up an account with Schwab and I'll put money in every month? They don't do that. People just don't do that, do they?
Yeah, I think we know the answer to that one, right? Is that if we can't get people to opt in, and usually there's some sort of a match, right?
Yeah,
like before I started my business here decades ago, where I worked, there was a 401k, and initially if you put in 6%, that match 6%. That's a heck of a deal, right? You're getting 100% return on your money right away. If that cannot convince somebody to get involved in it, do you think they're going to go and do that by themselves?
Yeah, they just won't. I mean, we could sit and talk about the warts of the 401k all day, and the choices aren't there, the target date funds aren't really great, the fees are too high, and all of that different stuff. But it's the best game in town, and
it's
I got
the only game in town for a lot of places, right?
I gotta believe that most of the wealth that people bring to you is in a 401k, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. The number of 401k or IRA, right, same kind of sort of thing, millionaires out there, I think most people will be surprised.
Yeah.
And they're not driving a Rolls Royce, right? They're not living in the most expensive part of town and going to the steakhouses every night. They're average Joes like you and me, Randy, and just for decades, they have just been diligent about putting money away, growing it, saving, keeping your debt low, and that's what's got them to where they are.
Yep, those are the people, the millionaire next door, as they say. For years and years have just disciplined and just put money in there and forgot about it. And then every year when you got a raise, you put another 1% in, and that went in, and you didn't even notice it. That is what builds wealth. It's not, getting in on Amazon when they had the IPO. That sure, that could happen, but it doesn't happen to everybody. That is for sure. You're listening to Clear Skies Retirement with Jay Kirkwood at Secure Financial Management. To sit down and talk about your 401k. It has been the best game in town. But when you get to retirement, there's tax issues. There's a lot of different things that we have to maneuver around. So when it comes time to using that money, that's going to take some planning and some advice. Give Jay a call, 210-985-6200. Again, 210-985-6200 or retire210.com. So I found this out. If you go to YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, and there's all sorts of people that giving all sorts of advice there, they're called influencers. We've all heard that. Well, if you give financial advice, they call you a finfluencer. That's a new one on me. So there's a lot of people out there giving a lot of advice, and according to Yahoo Finance, a lot of it is bad advice. So when people come in your door, I got to believe that they've got some opinions on where their money should be, how it should be deployed. And some of that comes from family and friends. It comes from coworkers. It comes from a lot of different sources. And some of it's probably not right. So how do you unwind that? Do you it's hard to look at him and say, I know your father-in-law said this and he's in the banking industry, but he's wrong. It's hard to say something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you know what? This is not really a new phenomenon. So as far as online TikTok influencers, whatever, right? That's just the latest iteration of it. Okay. This has been going on for decades. I remember, so going back to when magazine subscriptions were a thing, right? Which is dating myself, obviously.
It's a long time ago now, yeah.
Far, right? But we'd have people come and be like, well, my brother's neighbor has a subscription to Money Magazine. And they say, I was like, okay. And look, I feel for people with that because they're trying to find out, right? They're trying to educate themselves on an industry that unfortunately is complicated, right? So I get where they're coming from, but letting those sorts of things influence you without getting proper, true advice, and this is the most important part, that is specific for you is very dangerous. And that's a lot of these articles. Remember, if it's an influencer, if it's a magazine article, if it's something on TV, if it's a newspaper article, how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are they trying to craft that for? So it's got to be quite general. It's got to be quite vague. It's got to be quite impersonal to reach the audience. Randy, the funniest ones I see, influencers on financial issues. So I'm a pilot. I see the ones for pilots. And those one, some of those I'm watching, I was like, yeah, don't do that. You'll die. Like you should really not listen to that.
Oh no, that is not good. Yeah, I totally get. I mean, people, I can believe it. Hey, I watch Kramer and he says this, or Susie Orman said that, or Dave Ramsey said this, or Tony Robbins said that, and we bring those things up on this show to get your opinion on them. But to guide your financial life by influencers like that might not be right. They have broad brushstrokes that they paint with, very generic information for the most part. I mean, even if you watch Kramer at the end, there's a big disclaimer there that says, hey, this is broad information. It might not be for you. You should go see your financial advisor. Talk to a tax person. That's important stuff.
This is what you'll also find. Okay. And I'm not going to say everybody, but I'm going to say a lot of the big names like you just mentioned. If you start digging in to how are they set up, they have no registrations. They have no licenses. They're giving advice. And the reason they don't have any of those licenses or registrations is because then they'd be accountable for what they say. So
they couldn't say what they say.
You couldn't say. That's right. You'd be accountable for what you say. So, if Susie Orman gives you some advice and you're listening to it, you're like, well, that really messed me up, Susie. I'm going to go and hold her accountable. Well, you can't.
Yeah, that's a great point. And know the source and take it with a grain of salt. You want to bounce it off Jay? Fine. Let's do the math on it. Let's see if it works. But if it doesn't work, don't be surprised. We would love to sit down and really do the math on your retirement. And that means not just using the broad brushstrokes. That's saying, okay, you've saved $743,000 in your 401k. You've put this much in your Roth. You have this car payment. It's going to be done in 2 years. We're going to really get down granular into that. And I mean, Jay, part of the financial and retirement planning process is saying, what are your bills? What are you paying now? What are you going to be paying in 5 years? What does this money that you've saved do for you? And do those two things match up? And that's where the real math is done, isn't it?
That's when you're getting something that is specific for you, right? So anybody who goes through our process, if you compare that to what you're watching from an influencer, or you're reading a newspaper or watching on the TV, you'll see how detailed it needs to be on a personal level. The first meeting we have with people, all it is talking about them. What's going on with you? What do you have to work with? Where are you in life right now? Where are you trying to get to? What are your concerns? Where are the areas where maybe you haven't done enough planning and we need to dig into more? It's an hour-long meeting about learning about that individual, because let's be honest, how can you really do your job, our financial planning job, if you don't know all those details about somebody?
Yeah. And people are of all different categories. They're going to come in, and you might not have to pay for a $60,000 wedding that's coming up, but somebody else might.
Right.
They've got daughters like you do, and I do. And all of that factors in, and we got to know what's coming. And we also have to know, I had somebody say to me one time, I plan every year for a $10,000 event. And I go, what do you mean? It could be a positive thing, like there's $10,000 there, go on a trip. It could be, we got a leak in the roof or a tree hit the house and we got to fix that. And it's a $10,000 event. So
and you know what? I bet you almost every year it happens too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just tends to, right? Yeah.
If the car goes bad or something goes bad, or that water heater, or there's some kind of a water event, something happens, and you're going to have to put money out on something like that, and it needs to be built in to your budget for retirement. That is what it is to have a customized plan. Give us a call. We'll build one of those for you. 210-985-6200. We call it our Get Me to Retirement 5-step process. And we'll do that for you at no charge. 210-985-6200. Our website is retire210.com. When you go there, learn more about secure financial management. Go all the way down to the bottom of the page, and there's a place for you to put in your name and a little information there, and we'll call you and say, what do you want to talk about? What are your concerns? Let's get it solved for you and see if we can, if it gels, if it's a good feeling and you feel like we can help. Let's go forward. 210-985-6200 or retire210.com. Well, we've learned a new word this year. That word is Doge, the Elon Musk effort to get rid of government waste and efficiency. So whether you agree with it or not, I thought we would take the word Doge and apply it to our retirement plan. Because, Jay, one of the things that you do is you do an analysis for somebody is to figure out what's working and what's not working. I don't want waste and inefficiency in my government. I also don't want it in my retirement plan. So what would you consider to be some of the consistent things that you find that might be not working or wasteful and inefficient in a retirement plan?
Yeah. So I think we can talk about this in two different kind of topics, is the actual spending / budget, right, in a retirement plan, and then also the investment allocation side in a plan, okay? So very often when we're going through one of our first meetings with clients is we're going to say, hey, what do we need for retirement funding? Some people have no clue. Some people have done a lot of work. And it's a bit of a budget discussion, right? And I know that's a dirty word for some people, but change it. Call it a spending plan, whatever you want. But we've got to get this done, okay? And we'll go through and we'll find things that just, they're not necessary. Or it's money that's kind of just being wasted. And we had a couple that were in here, it's probably a month ago, and they're members of a country club. And it's not cheap doing that. And I said, hey, if this is important to you, right, if it's something you guys do a lot of, you're very involved with that country club, let's try and find a way to keep this in the budget, in the plan. And they're like, I can't remember the last time we went there. It just got on. It's not so much magazine subscriptions, but back in the day, magazine subscriptions, and you're like, wow, I'm spending how much on these magazines, and I haven't even read them in a while. So it's going through. Family members can sometimes be a drain on the budget, whether it's adult children or other family members you're helping out. Is there a discussion needed to say, hey, this was okay while I was working, now I'm going into retirement, I've really got to take care of myself, right? So it's cleaning up that side of, I'll call it the balance sheet, okay? The next side is, what are our investments doing and how are they working for us? A big thing we're focusing on right now is we're looking at people that got into annuities years ago, and they're finding that they're in an annuity that's paying them 1%, 2%, because they did this back in the 2019, 2020 sort of period, 2021 period where interest rates were incredibly low, or they're in old bonds that are not paying them much. And we're saying, hey, you've got an opportunity to upgrade here. Let's not let this drag your plan down. Let's not let this be an inefficient component of your investing, and get these things upgraded.
Yeah, it's kind of like refinancing your mortgage.
That's right.
When rates go down, you refinance your mortgage. When rates go up, you could refinance your annuity. That only makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely right.
All right. So as we talk about inefficiencies, one of the things that I thought maybe we would touch on is the discovery of the fees that are inside your portfolio.
Yeah.
I mean, the people from Fidelity and Vanguard, they're good people, but they don't work for free. And a lot of us, since we're not writing a check every month for that service, we don't even think that we are paying for that. And sometimes it can be an eye-opener, especially if you have an advisor and you come in for a second opinion. You'll start to learn what you're spending on these things, and sometimes that can be a little maddening, can it?
Yeah, it can. And I had a call actually with a lady who was a referral from one of our existing clients. She's up in Fort Worth. So we just did a virtual meeting, and we were chatting, and she's like, I recently lost my husband. He used to take care of all this, and I'm kind of trying to muddle my way through this and figure it out. And she said, part of our money is at Schwab. And I said, okay. And she's like, there's some guy there that calls me every now and then and tries to, recommend something to me. And she said, his thing was that they don't charge me, but I've noticed all of my investments are only in Schwab type products. Okay. I was like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out, does it? And so that's the thing, is there's an old saying, I'm probably going to get this wrong, is that if you don't know where the cost or the fee is coming from, you are the product. Right. That's what's happening. Right. It's the same whether it's 401ks or whatever it is. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Analyze and maybe it's a fine investment allocation to have all the same products like she has with. I don't know. We haven't gotten a deep dive into the portfolio yet. Maybe it's okay, but I've got to wonder if you've got a portfolio that's all concentrated in one firm's product. Is that the best option for you, or is it the best option for them?
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the ideas that we have when we sit down and do the analysis is figure out what's working, what's not working, and then maybe open your eyes to what you're paying for and some of the things that does everything you have a purpose, or did somebody say you should have this in there and you don't know
That's
why?
right.
Yeah, there's a lot that can come out of an analysis, and we would love to do that for you at no charge. Give us a look on our website, which is retire210.com. If you see up at the top of the page, says schedule a meeting, you do that. That's no charge. You go down to the bottom of the page. You can fill in some information there about you and what you're concerned about. We'll get you a copy of Jay's book as well and get a date on a calendar. Let's do that analysis and figure out what's going on inside your retirement money. Again, 210-985-60-200. Well, there was a guy back in the 90s. His name is William Benjamin, and he created something called the 4% rule. The idea was if the market averages 8-9% and you take 4% of your money every year, you'll never run out of money. Makes total sense, I guess. But what if the market doesn't go up like that? That's the little caveat there, right? So we talk about decreasing your risk as you go into retirement. William Benjamin is still around, and he just recently said he believes you should increase your risk in retirement.
Yeah, there are three choices: reduce stocks, maintain them, or increase them. And of the three, the worst is to decrease your stocks. It's the one thing you do not want to do. Fortunately, there's a plateau between about 47% stocks and about 75% stocks. If you stay in that range and the rest in bonds and cash, you'll end up with about the same withdrawal rate, about 4.7% or whatever, you choose.
That goes against all of today's conventional wisdom. I mean, that's exactly opposite of what I hear from you and from everybody else. He says you should increase your risk because you need that growth.
Yeah.
People are hearing stuff like this. How do we figure this out?
Yeah. So the problem with stuff like this, with recommendations like this, is that what they're saying is not wrong, but they're not taking into consideration the human element. What we really do when we're invested. Because you mentioned, hey, average is 9%, take out 4%, and then you've got some growth there still to take care of inflation and stuff. Well, that's assuming that you have 100% allocation to the stock market, which means in times like this, you have 100% of the downside participation and you're down 15, 20%. Your $1 million is down to whatever, 850, 800,000. The first problem with that is most people cannot stomach that volatility, okay? So we are really going into like a mental sort of emotional sort of discussion, I guess you can get with this. If you just write it out, historically, if history will repeat itself, right? He's accurate. People cannot do that. And these sorts of events prove that they cannot. My phone wouldn't be getting blown up. I wouldn't be constantly in client meetings kind of discussing what's going on with the portfolio if people were 100% okay with risk. It's not realistic for what he's discussing there.
Well, there is a delicate balance that we all have to figure out because you say, if you're a young person, you should have more in the stock market.
Right.
If you're an older person, you should have less in the stock market. That only makes sense. But then we turn around and say, hey, you could be in retirement for 25 years. So are you really a short-term investor? I get that, but maybe we put our money in different places that isn't as at risk as we did when we were in our 20s and 30s.
You really need to, because what we always talk about is once you get to retirement, you've lost one of the most important assets you used to have for investing, and it's something called time. Okay, you've lost the element of time, because in this scenario, one of the bigger risks that you face is what's called sequence of returns. Okay, and we talk about sequence of returns. We say, well, if we look at a 20, 25, 30-year time period, and we've got the market going up most of the time, which it does, but there's some big down years. I don't have the calendar in front of me, but I think it was 2001 and 2002 were back-to-back down years. 2008, 2009 were ugly. 22, et cetera, right? This year, perhaps, who knows? If you retired at the beginning of 2021 and you were 100% invested in the markets and your portfolio goes down, and I can't remember what the drawdown was, but 20%. And you think, well, all right, bad luck, next year it'll go, and boom, it's down another 15% the next year. You're probably never going to recover from that.
Right.
Yep. Because you were 100% in the markets. Where's your income coming from? Oh, the stuff that's very, very much down in my portfolio, I'm having to sell it so I can finance my retirement. You will probably never recover from it. And it's a small risk, right? The likelihood that you retire into a market that goes down as soon as you retire, we have a back-to-back down year, it's small, but it's not a risk I want to accept for my retirement.
And that's where we're all thinking right now. That's where our head is right now. I don't want to have one of these years happen in my retirement years. And so we want to put a plan in place to hedge that off and have a plan for it. That's the idea behind sitting down with Jay and building that kind of a retirement plan. Give us a call. We'll do that for you at no charge. We'll sit down with you and give you the analysis of where you're at right now and some suggestions on how you might be able to improve. Give us a call. Give us a look at our website. It's retire210.com. At the top of the page, it says schedule a meeting. Click on that or go down to the bottom of the page. There's a form fill right there. Get a copy of Jay's book, or you can just give us a call, 210-985-6200. 210-985-6200. We thank you so much for listening today. Remember, we have our podcast on iTunes and Spotify. You can also look us up online at retire210.com. We would love to have the opportunity to talk it through. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Investment advisory services offered through investment advisory representatives at Secure Financial Management, a registered investment advisor. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed are not designed nor intended to be applicable to any person's individual circumstances. It should not be considered as investment advice, nor does it constitute a recommendation that anyone engage in or refrain from a particular course of action. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate, and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Secure Financial Management is licensed in your state, please contact their office. Secure Financial Management is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Wholesalers Insurance. Jamin J. Kirkwood, Texas Insurance License number 1421850.